Man, she wasted that. I didn't waste it. I'm gonna save it and use it. Don't throw away the strawberry tops. So you have a great bumper crop on your strawberries, or maybe you got a great deal at the grocery store. I'm going to show you how to dehydrate them for use later, but also the bonus, how to use the tops so you're not just wasting them. Hi folks, it's Darcy from the Purposeful Pantry, and we talk about dehydrating everything on this channel, but today we're talking a little bit more, what to do with the leftovers. So as you can see, I've already gotten started. I've already washed all of my strawberries. You don't need to see me wash strawberries, really, you don't. So we're going to do these a few ways. We're going to slice for snacks to have in a trail mix or anything else and get them ready. And I'm waiting for all the comments of the people saying, she is wasting so much of that strawberry. Why is she cutting so much of the top off? There's a reason. Because you can use the tops. And we'll get to that a little later. Now when you're slicing for a chip, you can do one of two ways. You can do them just as coins like this. That's easy enough. Okay, so that you have this kind of chip. Or what I find easiest for me is just to cut the top off. And yeah, look at all that top I did. There's a reason. And I'll flip it over on its end. And it makes it a little easier for me to slice because it's more stable. You might try that with your kids if they're just learning how to do this. It just makes an easier slice. Now, I'm also going to be doing some chops like this because I like them in my oatmeal. I like them in cereal. And sometimes I just prefer the smaller pieces, like maybe for doing a quick bread, you can put strawberry pieces in it. Now I'm going to show you a couple of different things that you can also do. If you're one who does not want to go with any of the tips I give you for using any of these tops here, it's a whole strawberry. You can also use a strawberry huller. There's probably 4 or 5 different 1,000 versions, okay, that's are out there. You can do that just to pull the top off, but still don't toss that because you can use it. Now, this is an onion peeler, an onion slicer. It's something like that. It's kind of like a pick that you would use in your hair, except it's got some sharp tines on the end, and it slices in perfect slices just like that. So also I have a mushroom slicer that's like this, and the reason I like this more than an egg slicer is because it has these metal tines that do not break if you have something hard in them. So you just simply put your strawberry in, and you've got all of those slices just like that. It makes it go really fast. But another thing that I like to do also, especially when I'm working with smaller bits, and what I do is I use the smallest of the dicing, and then I get a few strawberries ready. They go right inside. And then I am left with lots and lots of small pieces. That makes it easier. I can get more done at one time. So let me finish the rest of these and we'll get going on the next steps. Okay, so I'm loading up a sheet of my bits, and while I can't do this like I would do onions or celery that I know, or greens that I know we're going to shrink down a whole lot, I'm also not going to sit and try to find an individual spot for each piece, trying to make sure it has its own little place in the sun. I'm going to mound the sheet up. I'm going to try to spread it out the best I can. If I find maybe I got it a little much, I'll pull some off and spread again. And use the entire surface that you have and get them all spread out. Good enough? Good enough for me. Okay, now we're gonna do some slices, and if you notice, I am not gonna try to make a pretty aesthetic. I'm not gonna line them up in cute little rows, because when you're preserving food, who's got time for that? Okay, so the next tip I have for you also is when you're putting these down, I try to always make sure that I put skin side down. Now, if you're in a stackable machine, that's gonna be a little different because either your airflow is coming from the top, coming up from the bottom, or going down from the top. You want it exposed to wherever the fan flows from. But when I'm doing these on mine, it's a cabinet style and the air goes across, I want to make sure that the surface gets as much exposure to that air as possible. So I do skin side down to make sure that it's going across the flesh, because I find that it gives a faster dry for me. Where I took some trays out. Okay, before we get started on the other ways that you can use these strawberry tops that we've got right here, I am going to go ahead. I took off some of the slices. I put them aside for my family to snack on today, and we are drying some of these tops. Now, what do you do with dried tops? We feed them to our rabbit. It's an occasional treat for her. She likes the crunchy. She likes to eat them. She thinks they're awesome. I also will throw these into my tea and let them steep in tea. And you get a strawberry flavored tea that I love to do. Dehydrating the tops. Okay, I've set these at 122F, 52C. The exact temperature doesn't matter. You just want it lower because strawberries can caramelize. You don't want that. I've set my machine ahead, 38 hours, 48, whatever. They're going to dry until they're dry. I'm going to let them go for about 24 hours. Okay, so what else we're going to do with all these scraps? This is something I've never done before. I want to give it a try and see what I think. So I'm only doing a small version of it instead of like a big half-gallon jar or more. We're going to make strawberry infused vinegar. Now this isn't exactly strawberry vinegar because I'm not making vinegar out of the scraps here. I'm infusing vinegar with the strawberry scraps that I have. So what I'm going to do is just take a bunch of these tops and I am going to stuff this jar full of them. Okay. And yes, typically you would see these recipes and they would have the tops off. I don't think that's even a thing. Why do that? Why waste the top? It's useful. Now, can you use those strawberry tops to compost? Compost is never wasting. Compost feeds the food that feeds us. So yes, you can compost these. But right now we're going to make strawberry infused vinegar. I'm going to pour vinegar inside until it's full. So we're not trying to get any particular headspace here, but what I do want to make sure of is that I have no air gaps in here where the vinegar hasn't gone in to fill up holes. And you can do that by using any kind of non-metallic thing. You can use your canning stick, your debubbler, your Pokey Joe, as some of my friends like to call it, and just stick it in here and make sure that you've got all of those air pockets exposed. So you can see, I don't know if you can see some of the bubbles coming up because as I expose a pocket. Now eventually this is probably going to just pan out in the refrigerator, and since we're not leaving this on the counter, it won't be a big deal, but I just want to be extra double sure. All right, so here we go. I want all of the strawberry under the vinegar. I don't want anything exposed. You can see it's already starting to turn color there. Okay, I'm going to add a couple more just for good effect. So I'm going to put the lid on top, and then it's going to go right into the refrigerator for 24, 48, however many hours you want to keep it in there, and let this infuse. Now, how can you use this? Make shrubs. If you like cocktails, this could be the start of a good shrub. You can do vinaigrettes for your salads. You can add this to some seltzer water with a little extra kind of sweetener of your choice and make a nice refreshing drink in the summer. And if you want more ideas about how you can use these tops, I'll have a link in the description box below in the iCards and tons more ideas. But let's get to the next thing that we're going to do with this little bit. Alrighty, for our next trick, we're going to add about 3 cups of of strawberries, okay? You can do this in slices, but I like to use the tops for this. And I go ahead and put in the strawberry greens. We're also going to add about a cup of sugar, okay, and about a cup of water. We're making a simple syrup with the strawberries, and we're going to let this come to a boil on medium-high heat. Now you can also make this syrup with just regular strawberries without the tops, without the greens, because you want to do it just that way. I just find this is a quick way to do this without having to take the time to hull all the strawberries. Now at this point, I'm going to add a tad of lemon juice. I don't want a ton. I just want to help brighten up that flavor a little bit. Okay, as we get to a boil, we are going to drop this down to a simmer, and we're going to allow this to simmer for about 15 minutes. I'm going to pour this into a jar. This is how you can store it. You can just store it in a jar with a tight fitting lid on it and put it in your refrigerator. Oop, that was a little full. Okay, now we have our jar. Now I'm not going to cover it completely because you don't want to do that when you let things cool. So I'm going to put a lid over it to let the air escape still, but protect it from anything dropping into it. And I don't want to put it in the refrigerator just yet because you don't put hot things into your refrigerator. But we're going to allow this to cool on the countertop first, then put it in the refrigerator overnight until we decant it for later. Okay, here we go. Now these have had about 20 hours to dry. And I do that on purpose because I want to make sure everything is good and dry. So I just turned the machine off. What you do not want to do is pick it up right off your machine as soon as you turn it off and then start trying to figure out if they're dry or not, because they're going to be bendy. They're warm. The sugars in there are still free-flowing. I don't know a better way to say it, but this is not the time to test. You want to let this stuff have about 5 or 10 minutes to cool off, preferably not in your machine. You can take some samples out and do them separately. Because the machine's still warm, it's going to keep these warm for a while longer. I go ahead and just pull them out and let them dry and let them cool off on a cabinet. But here are the bits. They will just peel right off, just like this. And that's what I will use in my oatmeal, in cereals and things like that. Then here are tops. Now, while my strawberries are cooling off, I want to make sure they've had plenty of time before we test them and before I store. I'm going to go ahead and decant our simple syrup. This is our strawberry syrup after it's been in the refrigerator. It has thickened up quite a bit while it was in there, because sugars do that when they're refrigerated. And then it will store just like that in the refrigerator. So how do I use this? My tea, I get 1 glass of tea a day. Add a little bit of strawberry to it. Essence of strawberry. Stir it up. And add a fresh sprig of mint that I just pulled from the garden this morning. Strawberry tea. Now what am I going to do with this? I'm going to put it back on the stovetop and let it simmer some more to thicken up so that it can be used for pancake syrup for tomorrow morning. Okay, while that is simmering on the stove, we're going to get to our strawberries. Now, here are our strawberries. They should break easily, okay? And we're going to start storing. I don't know exactly the size jar I'm going to need, so we'll just start here. You can break these easily by just bending them. Just like this, and they should pop off your sheets. Now, if I had dried these much hotter at the typical 135, 57C that's recommended by many sources, you are probably going to end up with strawberries that are what you might think is burned. They're caramelized. The sugars in them get really brown, and maybe you like that flavor, but it doesn't look great. That's totally up to you. Gosh, I need another drink. That is good stuff. Okay, so I always recommend that with really sugary fruits that can turn like that, you might want to go ahead and turn the temperature down. I'm going to put our bits in. These are going to make great additions to oatmeal in the winter and any kind of cereal that you might want to add a little extra to, or trail mix, or however you'd like to use it. Okay, we'll leave these out for snacking for the day, and I'm taking my my tops and I'm just going to throw them in a jar, and then we give them to the rabbit every once in a while as a little special treat for her. Okay, next step is always conditioning in a jar. Shake it around. You're looking for making sure that there aren't large clumps, that you don't have things sticking to the top that don't just easily shake off. If you have to really work at it, it's time to put it back into the machine. And you're looking in case there's any kind of moisture forming anywhere, or from the condensation, or if you see mold. If you see mold, chuck it. If you see anything else, moisture clumping, you can put it back into your dehydrator and dry it some more. So for storage, it's not recommended that you vacuum seal or put oxygen absorbers into fruits that may not be fully dry. Now, it's a bit controversial because if your fruit is fully dry, that shouldn't be a thing. But just in case it's not, it can, in really extreme cases, cause botulism. But what I do recommend instead, because with fruits, this is the bigger issue, is putting a moisture absorber in and then closing your jar and storing it just like this when you're ready to store. Don't add that when you're conditioning, because you're trying to make sure that things rehydrate equally through the entire jar, that you're checking for problem spots. If you put a moisture absorber in, that could actually hide something and mask something that may be happening in there, and you don't want that. So store it with a moisture absorber if that's a problem for you, if you feel like you need to, and that will help control any moisture introduced every time you open your jar. Now, if all these ideas look good to you and you want to learn how to do some other things with the bumper crop of zucchini for the year, watch this video right here. And until I see you again next time, happy dehydrating.